Welcome, everybody. I'm Marc David, founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. Here we are in the Psychology of Eating podcast. I'm with Rachel today. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad we're doing this. And this is all about you and I meeting together for the first time in a first session. And if you could wave your magic wand and get whatever you wanted with food and body, what would that be for you?
I think that would be to get rid of some of the guilt of the food rules that, I used to have for myself when I was going through my own eating disorder. Um, I went through an eating disorder for a good 5 years of my life, and I feel like I've come a pretty long way, but I still don't feel like I've achieved that food freedom of just being able to nourish my body and just being conscious at the same time. Sometimes I feel like I get lost in some of those old rules that I made for myself. So, really looking for more of that mental freedom in terms of food.
Got it. So I can understand more specifically, what does the mental unfreedom look like? Like, how might that sound in your head?
Yeah. So say, I went out with my friends the night before. Maybe we had pizza. Maybe I had a glass of wine. And the next day, I will, want to have like a sweet potato with my lunch or something that might be a little bit higher in carbohydrates. And that is something that will restrict me still sometimes because I will always feel, like I had this the night before. Maybe I shouldn't be eating, you know, more carbs today. And that's something that even if it's, a healthy food, it's still in my mindset that I can't have this because of what I had yesterday. I'm more conscious about it now, but it's still there.
Still there. So are there times when you find yourself eating something that you think you shouldn't or wish you didn't?
Yes.
And then what happens? Where do you go in your head?
I go to a place of one of two things. It's either I ate one thing, so I'm just going to continue. And, tonight I'm just going to eat what I want. And I will eat things that don't serve my body. And after that, I will be, very honest with myself and know that those didn't serve my body. And I was eating out of what I felt like was a lack mindset of, I've been restricting this food or these things, and I'm going to just eat them all right now. That has happened, and it's slowly been improving. I think I am becoming more mindful, but sometimes when that does happen, it does make me feel like I failed or I messed up, and I'm working towards not feeling that way anymore.
Great. Okay. So how long, or how old are you now?
I'm 29.
And when would you say you got your head above water in terms of the eating disorder you said you had for 5 years?
About three and a half years ago, the eating disorder I had was orthorexia. So I was very extreme about healthy eating. So about 3 to 4 years ago, I think I was like, it's time. My health was suffering. I was very low in weight. I lost my period for 5 years. And so I decided something needs to change. And so it's been about 3.5 years since I've really dove in to doing the work.
And what do you think? I'm sure it's a number of things, but off the top of your mind, what are some of the things that helped you the most in moving more beyond that?
I think a lot of self-reflection and just being honest with myself, understanding the reasons why I was doing the things that I was doing, why I was eating so little, why I felt like I had to exercise to compensate for when I did eat a little bit more. I also began practicing yoga a lot more, a lot of breath, focusing on breath, not just go, go, go all the time, but just taking time to check in with myself and not having any food rules, allowing myself to, if I wanted, even just like a piece of toast with avocado on it, just to let myself have that, because there were so many times that I wouldn't. And I think the more I became comfortable with allowing myself to do that, the more I built those habits over time and pushed some of those old habits out.
Got it. So, it's fascinating how this thing called orthorexia, which is, on one level, so many ways to define it, but we become fixated on and even obsessed with, uh, I got to eat healthy. I got to be healthy. Here's what I have to do to eat healthy, be healthy. And on the one hand, what a good thing, I'm
Right.
focused on my good health.
Hmm.
So it's sort of a very noble problem is what it feels
Yes,
like. It feels like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing.
for sure.
Gonna be obsessed about something, be obsessed about health, but the obsession itself, as you discovered, can make one unhealthy.
Yes.
So how do you feel about your weight these days?
I actually am in a much better place than I was. I kind of I went from orthorexia to kind of more of like a binge eating because I was finally allowing myself all this food. So it just naturally happened. And it was very hard to just come back to a natural appetite. And reach my body's homeostasis, because I just, wanted to stay in that mindset of eating all the things. So I I probably got to my heaviest about 2 years ago, and I'm okay with my weight now. It still feels a little bit more than I would like it to be, but I also think that has to do with old patterns of, body dysmorphia and seeing myself at a lower weight and never really seeing a problem with it when it was a problem. Um, so it's at a good spot, but I still feel those patterns of wanting to shift things or change things about myself. They're still present.
Do you have a number in your head that pops up? You say to yourself, here's how much weight I would like to lose. I mean, I don't want to
Yes.
do all the old patterns, but if I could, make it all happen, I would lose how much weight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in high school, I was 125 pounds, so I think I have that number in my head. So I'm like, oh, I need to lose 10 here, lose 15 here. And I mean, at one point it was like 25, 30. And it's been hard to come to the realization that I am a woman and I do not need to be what 18-year-old me was. Um, and it's okay. Um, but it's a very hard concept to shift your perspective on.
It is. It really is. Yeah, because those images that we have of ourselves, the numbers that we have for ourselves, they become like a religion.
Yes,
And you got to follow that religion. Otherwise, you're going to be punished. It's
exactly.
it's not a sweet, nice, uh, huggy, lovey-dovey kind of religion.
Right.
So, are you in a relationship these days?
Yes, I've been in a relationship actually for almost 10 years now.
Oh,
Um, so kind of have gone through all of this together. He's been a great support system for me, but it was a huge, challenge on our relationship when I was going through all of that, for sure.
yes. So how does your partner feel about your weight, your body?
He does not care either way. Like, he was of course concerned when I did get to a lower weight, because he had seen me at just like my body's homeostasis functioning. I didn't really have any food rules prior to, like, when we first started dating. So yeah, he doesn't see any numbers when he looks at me. He doesn't ever, like, he will accept me exactly as I am. So it's more my own projections, but
That's good to realize. And what a good opportunity to be getting that reflection and
yes,
living with somebody and being in a relationship with a man who is basically saying, you're fine.
yes.
Not staying up all day and all night. kind of worrying about you gaining a pound or wishing you would lose 5 or 10 or whatever it is.
Right. Exactly.
So here's a thought. Here's a thought. Um, about so it's I want to connect orthorexia to where you are today. By the way, congratulations on your progress
Thank
because
you.
it takes work to get where you
Yes.
are.
Takes a lot. Yes,
Yeah, it takes a
absolutely.
lot of work. And yeah, you definitely deserve kudos for that because it's almost easier to stay in a disordered relationship with food. It's easier to stay in an unhappy relationship with your body and your eating patterns because it's familiar, it's weirdly comfortable,
Yes.
and it's predictable, and you got all the rules. And it's nice to have a nice ordered universe. Here's my rules. If I
Yes.
follow the rules, I'm a good girl. If I break the rules, I'm a bad girl. So it's very structured.
Mhm.
And a part of us likes to have control. And part of control is knowing that you've got the right rules. You got your 10 commandments. Thou shalt eat this, thou shalt not eat that, sort of a thing. So part of what you're learning as you go along, and that you've learned a lot about, I think, is that the black and white rules don't necessarily serve us.
Right.
And that there's a beautiful, I don't even want to call it a gray zone, I want to call it a colorful zone in between black and white, where there's all sort of interesting possibilities. So I mentioned how orthorexia is a very noble, eating challenge
Yes.
because it's focused on health. And in our culture and our world, if you're focused on health, you're a good guy, pretty much. If you're not focused on health, yeah, you're not so much of a good guy. Now, I don't, here's a guess, here's a hunch, and it's that driving the orthorexia, driving the rules around food is, and maybe this is not a revelation to you, is your relationship with your weight. So it's the number in your head, and it's the image that you have of your body that you want it to be, that is the fuel, that's the fire, that's the gasoline for orthorexic behaviors and all the subsequent punishments that might follow. Because the only reason to have all these rules is because you want an outcome. And the outcome is I got the body I want, period.
Hmm.
So as long as the image and the number has power, that's why I asked you, like, how much weight do you want to lose? If you could just sort of do it and just sort of snap your fingers, because that number will silently hold power over us. It has less power over you than it did 5 years ago or 6 years ago or whenever. So in order for you to gain more freedom from the conversation in the mind that's poking at you and saying, wait a second, you ate this last night, therefore you can't eat that today. And you got to do this today, you got to do that today. That's all driven by the number. That's all driven by the body that your brain, your mind, your habit is telling you, this is what I want. How does it land for you when I say that?
I feel like that was exactly it. I think that I don't know if I've ever had that revelation before. I think I've seen all those pieces, but I've never actually come to that conclusion. I think I've understood the control that I was seeking, but I don't know if I ever connected that control to the number or the image I'm looking for. I always knew I was looking for a specific image. I always knew I'd be weighing myself and looking for a number, but I don't know if I ever really realized how interconnected they were. I always felt, as the control aspect and food being related, not so much the control aspect and my weight and my body image. It always just seemed like secondary or the outcome. So, yeah, that was definitely a revelation for me.
Yeah, so I'm saying that's the fuel. The number, the weight, the body that you want, that is the ultimate goal. And I wanted to highlight that because as you kind of notice that more and see that more and connect with that part of you, you're going to have more power to reclaim your own happiness. The punchline is that when you can let go of the number and start to enjoy more the body that you have right now, then you're doing the thing that you think you're going to do when you have your perfect weight and your ideal body. When you have your perfect weight and your ideal body, what's going to happen? You're going to be happy. Like, ta-da! Like, I win. And I feel great about myself. And all these good things are going to happen. Like, just it's all going to come together somehow. It's going to be pristine. And I no longer have to do any hard work in terms of weight and body. And I'm going to just hit the sweet spot of me. And so the net result is we sort of push off happiness into the future.
Mm-hmm.
But we want that happiness, but we believe it's attached to a number. So then the rules you have still have power because in your mind, these rules are going to help me lose weight.
Yes.
So if I follow these rules, I lose the weight and then I'm happy. So, and then when you're happy about your body, you can actually enjoy your body.
Mm-hmm.
You can like, hey, I love this body now. I enjoy it. Till then, not really. Sort of, yes, kind of, sometimes, whatever. So oddly enough, what I have noticed is that one of the major helpers to get where you want to go is to do the kinds of things in your life that help you enjoy this body that you have that looks like this, ways like this. How do you be in this body today? So when you tell me that yoga has helped you or breathing has helped you, what I hear is you're being in your body in a whole different way and it feels good to you. So the more you be in your body in a way that feels, oh wow, I'm being in my body in a conscious and aware way, and that feels good. That's healing. That's transformative. That helps you get the end result that you've been looking for. Man, I'm going to really love being in this body. You start to feel what that feels like now.
Yes. That is what I'm seeking.
So instead of tying, I'm going to feel good about my body, I'm going to feel good about being in my body, instead of tying that to a number on the scale, you just tie it to your experience. Like, what did I do today that enabled me to feel good about being in my body?
Yes. That makes so much sense to me. And that's something that I feel like is so hard when you're coming off of the orthorexia, the eating, the exercise obsession.
Yes.
Um, it's so hard to be in your body. And I think that's something that might be the thing that I struggle with the most because I'm aware of how yoga and meditation bring me into myself. But then I have that voice in the back of my head that's telling me, sprint today, lift heavy tomorrow, do all these things that turn on that fight or flight response, because that's what you're seeking because you've sought it for so long.
Yes.
And yeah.
So how about if you consider making better friends with that, let's call it an old voice that still lives in you, instead of fighting that, instead of looking at it like, okay, I got to overcome this. I got to defeat it. I got to make sure it doesn't like talk to me anymore. Instead of that, let's bring it along for the ride. You might even find a good name to give to that part of you. Call it orthorexic Rachel or something like that. Whatever, but give her a fun name. And whenever she's talking to you, give her a little pesky acknowledgement. Oh, like, there you are. Oh, there you are. Great. I know you. And you want what you want. And, I want something different. And we're gonna do different. We're gonna be different today. So instead of looking at that voice popping up as a failure on your part or as an indication that you're still not where you want to be, let's look at it as this is a practice that you're doing. It's a practice. And it's an old voice. And we don't want to kill it. We just want to downsize it. She might be there to some degree for the rest of your life, but she'll only show up once a week, once a month. Even if she shows up once a day, it's okay, hi. And now we're doing something else. Because right now there's a part of you, understandably, that you're very goal directed. I want to clean this up.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaning it up doesn't mean eradicating it. It doesn't mean defeating it. It actually means befriending it and having compassion for it in a strange way. Oh yeah, that's the me I used to be. And you know what? That voice, oddly enough, you didn't invent it. You didn't invent the voice of orthorexia. You learned it from the world.
Yeah.
You're not the originator. You learned it from the world. You absorbed it from the world. It's like a virus that gets into the system. So no blame. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just born on planet Earth into a collective conversation that is sometimes insane. And that collective conversation is particularly insane when it comes to food, body, weight, self-love, self-acceptance, and in particular for women.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh yeah, that's that voice that I inherited from the world. God, no wonder it's so hard to manage that because it's more powerful than any one person. So a little bit of compassion for yourself and compassion for your voice. Yeah, that's the voice that I thought I needed to let drive the show. That's the voice that I used to think was going to get me to enlightenment and to self-love and to perfection and to just, yes, I reached the top of the mountain. That's that old voice that I used to believe in.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's easier to just, quiet it. And when you're quieting it, what you're doing is you're introducing another voice, which is, oh, and I'm choosing to be present with myself. I'm choosing this body. So every day is a practice in choosing this body, the body you have right now.
Yes.
And we don't know what's going to happen with your weight, quite frankly. I don't know that, literally don't know that or anybody knows what your natural weight is at this stage of the game. We don't know. You're finding your natural appetite. You're finding your new groove. You're growing, you're maturing. So as you change, body tends to change. So if you look at it like this is your journey with your body, and here's where you're at in your journey, you're at a good place. So there's nothing wrong going on as far as I'm concerned. You're a success story. And just because that voice is still there, hallelujah, fine. It's a powerful voice. I have that voice in my head. I got my rules. Now I like to follow my rules around health because it helps me be healthy.
Right.
And so that's a good thing. It's good to have good rules about health. So that's a lovely voice. It's an intelligent voice. It can be a smart voice, and it could also be a pain in the butt, and it can be kind of dumb,
Yes.
and it could be a pest and inaccurate and unhelpful. So then we have to notice, okay, when is that a helpful voice for me? And when is it not so helpful?
Right. I know. And I hear it every day.
Yes.
And I think the glorification of the diets that you see constantly on social media coming up, and not that it's confusing, but it's so much to take in. And then you feel as though you're inclined to follow one closely. Like I've done paleo, I've tried Whole30. Not that those haven't served me in some way, but they've spoken to that voice in my head of regimented restriction. You need to be eating like this all the time. And then when I'm not, that little voice is still there. Um, so I think that those things have been a huge driver in that voice, just continuing. And you just have to be so intentional about what you're taking in. And
Yeah.
it's hard to be.
Yeah. What a great observation. Because the more you're reading about the latest diet and how you should follow it and why you should follow it and why you're a loser if you don't follow it, essentially,
Mhm.
that's a lot of pressure, and it's fuel for that old voice in you. And there's a time for many of us for, okay, I got to play a tight game with food.
Mhm.
Sometimes people have medical issues. You got to play a tight game with food. Um, and sometimes that's just where we're at in our journey with food and body. We just need to tighten our game. And to me, it sounds like for you, you're in a time when you need to be more of an artist with your food game, and just here's your palette, and let's just be creative. And instead of discovering the system out there that you should follow, I think you're discovering the system in here that works for you.
Yes.
And chances are that system definitely has some wonderful guidelines that are smart, that make sense. And I think for you, there's got to be enough flexibility so you can play and you can have a little fun and you can breathe
Yes.
and you can just let go.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it's so hard to trust, the new voice it's there. It's not set in stone yet,
Mhm.
but it's so hard to trust it because I am aware of the other voice that's there that we've spoke about that is not trustworthy. So just having the self-awareness to know who to trust when
Yeah.
you hear two different voices, and just allowing yourself to trust it and to experiment with what makes you feel good that does not, adhere to what everyone else is doing on Instagram.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. And trust is such an interesting creature, because trust doesn't mean, well, if I trust this voice, it means I'm going to have a good outcome. If I
Mhm.
have a bad outcome, it means I shouldn't have trusted that voice. I think trust really means that, even I trust this new growing voice in me that says, hey, loosen up a bit. Hey, try this, try that, it's okay. Part of it is trusting that even if you don't feel great afterwards, or even if you realize, oh, that might not have been the best choice for my body, you trust that you stand by yourself. You trust that you're not going to go into self-attack, self-blame, and behaviors that punish you.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's you being willing to stand by yourself.
Yes.
Because that's often
And
what we're afraid when we're not trusting, like, oh my God, if I do something wrong, I'm gonna I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna bring myself down. I'm gonna
yeah,
punish myself.
yes. And I think that in that sense, like I have used exercise as a way to punish myself.
Yeah.
And that has been a huge realization for me in the last few years. I think it's also a huge part of who you surround yourself with. I think that I've noticed so many patterns ingrained in people around me, which can be triggers too.
Sure.
So it's kind of, forcing yourself to turn inward and thinking, they're at a different place in their journey and not relating their comments to their body to the old ones that I used to have and feeling, a sense of connection there. I mean, it's great to be relatable, but at the same time, when you have kind of pushed forward a little bit, um, just being intentional of like not allowing yourself to go back into those old patterns of thinking and being aware of who's around you, because I think, whether it's following someone on social media or, friends or parents, like my mom has, so many old thoughts and things that she never has processed. So listening to your own voice is one thing, but then I think it's also like so affected by, everything you're hearing around you that it can be so hard to differentiate. It can be so hard to trust.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And it's what makes it a challenging path.
Mhm.
Just being a conscious human being, staying awake and being able to have healthy boundaries. Healthy boundary means I'm going to let in what works for me, and I'm going to keep out what's not so good for me. That's a healthy boundary. Like let me determine what I'm going to take in, and that's a practice.
Yeah.
That's an exercise. That's a yoga. That's a muscle that you exercise and you build it so it gets stronger. You notice the moments where you just need to step away from the conversation or change the conversation.
Yeah.
You notice the moments where you need to say something out loud or to yourself. But I want to get back to, just as a reminder, that I think one of the important takeaways from this conversation is to start to really notice the power that your number has, your weight loss number, like the number you want to be at, and practice. You're not going to do this perfectly, but practice whenever your brain starts talking numbers, practice just letting it go. Oh, that's a thought. I'm going to let that one go. As soon as you go into numbers, as soon as you say a number to yourself about your weight, your target weight, or how much weight you want to lose, you're feeding that old voice.
Mhm.
And just know that orthorexia was given life simply through the desire to be at a certain body type and a certain weight, a certain number. That's its power. So I don't know. I'm thinking of Lord of the Rings. If you want to, deal with it, you like go into that Mordor. You like go into
Yeah.
that volcano. That's where you toss the ring, and that's where it all began. Like the weight number is Mordor. Um, And at the same time, we can't really transcend my belief in the supremacy of this number, this weight loss number, until we begin to occupy our body more and more, which is what you've been doing. So you've been doing that. So you're on the right track. I'm just over here saying, keep doing that and keep believing that the road to get where you want to go, the place where you're going to find your natural appetite and find your natural weight, is when you're being your most natural self. Period. When you and I are being our most natural self, then yeah, there's going to be certain foods that you gravitate towards. There's going to be certain activities, certain kinds of exercise, certain practices that you gravitate towards. There's a certain way of being that you're going to choose to enact in the world. And as we be our more natural self, the body has its best chance to be at its natural weight. Our natural self loves to be in a body. Look at any little baby, look at any little infant. You just touch them and everything moves. They're just like, yes. Every part of their body is connected to every other part. They naturally love being in their body. Little kids run around naked. So the more you can find that place of innocence and play and enjoyment of being in your body, then you're being a more natural creature.
Yeah.
And that naturalness will empower you more and more.
Yes. And I
And
feel that.
yeah, and it comes with time and practice.
It does.
And you're doing it.
I'm trying.
You are. Yeah, you're doing it. That's also a piece of the puzzle, is just acknowledging to yourself that, yeah, I've had some great success. It's easy to see where you haven't gotten to,
Yeah.
but I hope you can really see and just have a celebration of like, wow, I've come a long way. I've worked hard and I've made amazing progress. Because I know people in their 40s and 50s who are dealing with what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So to be at this place, given your journey at age 29, that's lovely success.
Thank you.
Yeah. How you
Yeah.
feeling about the conversation, Rachel?
I'm feeling really good. It has really opened my eyes, I feel like, to a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't have noticed on my own. I feel like the biggest thing being the connection to the control of my weight. That's never something that that didn't click. It never clicked with me. I knew it was there, but I feel like when you're going through a recovery process and you're aware of you're trying to recover, there's so many factors that come into play that you can't always make those connections on your own. And you need somebody to pull them out of you and to say, like, here are these two pieces. This is coming together. This is what needs to be worked through.
Mhm. Yeah. Great work. Also, one last thing, and it's a little bit of a language piece. I so appreciate the language of recovery, because that's so much of what we have to do when we faced an eating challenge, when we face a substance abuse issue. We're in recovery.
Yes.
We've dealt with a trauma. We're in recovery. To me, you're, as a part of you in recovery, I think you're a little bit more in discovery stage. You're discovering. You're discovering who you really are. You're discovering what you really feel, what you want. You're discovering yourself as a person, as a woman in a body. You're in discovery. That
Yeah.
has a different flavor than recovery.
It really does. I've
Yeah.
never thought about it that way.
Yes. So play with that with yourself. Like, I'm in a discovery phase. Yeah, I'm still not perfect, but whatever. None of us are perfect.
Mhm.
You're just now discovering, oh, wow, these things work for me. This works. That doesn't work. This feels good. That doesn't.
Yeah. That was a beautiful way to put it. I don't think I ever could have thought of that on my
Yeah,
own.
it's a good reframe for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Rachel, thanks for a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yay. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Take care, my friends.
Hey friends, we're so happy that you've joined us for another episode of The Psychology of Eating with Marc David. Are you loving these episodes? Then simply subscribe and you'll never miss an episode again. We'd also love it if you'd leave us a comment below so we can hear more about your own journey with food and body. And if you're curious about what we offer at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, including our internationally acclaimed coach certification training that's rooted in dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition, please head on over to our website, psychologyofeating.com. Until next time, take care, and remember, having the body you want starts with loving the body you have.